Hi, welcome in. My name is Rosanna, or Ro. I'm a project manager, content creator, and healthy productivity fanatic. And in today's video, we are going to do my final review of my goals of 2024. At the beginning of the year, I made a video setting apart all my goals for this year, basically across my entire life. So for my job, for my own business, for my private life. And midway through the year, I did a little review of how we are doing so far. And this is going to be the final video of 2024, where I talk about these year's goals, how I've done, what I've learned from them. And then I will make a new video, a separate video, where I'm going to talk about my goals for 2025. However, I want to do that kind of in conjunction with my new Notion template, and I'm still working on that. So that is going to be something that will probably come out in the beginning of the next year, because I'm also still very much figuring out what I would like to do for the next year. But yeah, let's actually dive into my Notion dashboard for my goals and milestones, and I'm going to walk you through what I've done this year and also what I've learned from this Notion setup, because I feel like my previous goals video was very heavily reliant on me also explaining how my goals template worked, and I would like to share with you what I plan on changing for the next year. So let's actually dive right into it. So we are here in my goals and milestones board, and I'm going to just walk through the goals one by one and kind of talk about my milestones on the way. And we're going to kick off with the first one, which is my career. And I feel like this is also immediately the most dissatisfying or maybe disappointing one of all of them, because I would almost say that I reached none of these goals. And there is a very clear reason for that. That's because I prioritized another goal, which we'll get to in a little bit, which is my wellness goal, where I very specifically took the time out of this year to work on my physical health, which is something that I've been absolutely neglecting for a really long time. And this year kind of was an eye-opener on how much I've been neglecting that. And therefore, I actually didn't work for about 6 months. I've been slowly picking up my work again, but there are some long-term consequences of that as well. So I feel like specifically for next year, you'll see very different career goals for me, because I will most likely not be a project manager anymore. And I feel like that very much reflects in how much I have worked on these goals. I have actually updated all the milestones. So as you can see, I did actually reach the 5 impactful contributions to the Project Management Guild, because in the time that I was coming back to work, I have actually done quite some things as kind of things to fill my time, basically. So I've been updating templates. I have developed an entire project management training for people who aren't necessarily looking to become a project manager, but still need like some project management tactics in their work, and they can follow that training on our internal training platform. So I've made that. So I have actually like done things. I put improved my administration to reached. But I think personally for me, one of my most important lessons learned is that I suck at administration, which is almost hilarious considering that I love making Notion templates. But when it comes to like your day-to-day decision making and your day-to-day, like registration of where do we stand and how are things going and progress, that's just not my strong suit. And I don't think it ever will be. That is also okay. But I have been able to identify more specific targeted steps within like improve my administration, which is kind of a container term, to be able to figure out like where do I want to take this goal, maybe for my own business or just in general. So it was interesting. I have improved. I have learned a lot, but also I've almost become more aware of the things where I'm not that good at it yet and I need to improve further. So that would be like the first goal of my list. So I would consider it 50% reached maybe. I actually had to stop these 2 goals simply because I was no longer working as a project manager. Another thing that for me personally was very clear is that I created this goals and milestones database to be linked up to all kinds of other things like tasks and events and trips and courses. And as you can see, there is a bunch of things in here. So I have been linking my tasks to my goals. But I think for future years, I will no longer do this. I will only link my projects to my goals, because I feel like a project is usually something like a bigger endeavor that is going to take a while to complete, or is like a trip or an event or something that is going to like actively have a big impact. But a singular task of having a stand up with my team every week doesn't have to be on this board for me to realize that what I've been working on. So I think I'm kind of gonna separate that in my future Notion dashboards to make sure that I'm only tracking, I wouldn't say bigger things, because I'm not saying like small things aren't important, but more or less like if you put it in agile terms, like your run versus your change, I think the things that you do every single day or every single week, yes, of course, they contribute to your goals. And ideally, they would contribute to your goals a lot, because that means that you would reach your goals faster because you're working on it every week. But I would say that your returning work like administration and stuff isn't always contributing to a bigger goal. And therefore, trying to link every single task to a goal is also just not that useful. So that was a very important lesson learned from my side. And you will also see that being reflected in my Notion template next year. But for that goal, I have improved my project management quality, but I wouldn't say that I've actually fully reached it. The next one is develop my expertise in stakeholder management or become an expert in leading teams. Kind of the same story as I've already mentioned based on the previous goals. So I have worked on it a little bit, specifically in the first 6 months of the year. There were things that I was working on, but then I kind of had to let those go because I started my treatment for my fibromyalgia and my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And that kind of just threw everything in my life upside down. And I had to let go of any other career goals that I set for this year, which also felt right to do at the time. So I luckily didn't struggle with that a lot. It was rough for like a week because of that moment where you actively have to let go. But as soon as I kind of made the decision, okay, I cannot do both, I have to focus on one, I also kind of felt that weight being lifted off my chest of realizing it's okay to, you know, let go and focus on something else that is important in my life at that point. So with that, we're going to move on to the next category, which is content. And this is a category that also was challenged for sure by my health and, you know, everything that I was or wasn't able to do. Luckily, I had set up my business in a way that there were already a lot of systems and things that I could outsource. So I kind of just built upon that to make sure that I could continue doing what I wanted. One of the goals was hosting a panel at TwitchCon. Unfortunately, this one was not reached. I did apply for a panel in the US and a panel in the EU, but unfortunately, neither was accepted. I actually applied with multiple panels overall. That didn't mean that those events weren't useful. And it, like, I would say I put it to not reach, but closed. But I also would say I put myself out there. And that for me was the most important thing, that I wouldn't shy away from maybe being able to take that opportunity. Then the other thing was figuring out content creator business consultancy, which was a plan or like a quite ambitious idea I had at the beginning of the year of starting a coaching or a freelance business into helping other creators. But then throughout the year, I realized that that comes with a lot of things that I would have had to make. And also a lot of things of parts of my current job, being a project manager, that I don't necessarily enjoy, that would just increase if I started doing that for myself. So I realized that it wasn't fully aligning with what or where I wanted to grow to. And then also because I decided to shift my focus into my own wellness and my own health, I quite quickly realized that this was not the goal that I should be pursuing this year. And that if I wanted to create a business that was more sustainable in terms of like passive income and being able to sustain myself as a creator, this was also not the way to go. So I kind of just left it there, and I felt very happy with that decision ever since I made it. Then doing at least 5 collaborations with other creators, I have absolutely done. I have actually kept like a little list. So I have joined 2 Sims building competitions. I worked with an ASMR artist and ambient music creator, Justin, also known as J-Rob the Human. Make sure to link his channels down below. I know that he also watches my videos here. So if you're watching, Justin, hi. Thanks for working with me. I enjoyed it. We should do that again. That was pretty cool. I joined the Hope for Haiti charity event hosted by my friend Spring Sims, who invited me to join his charity event, and I absolutely said yes, and it was wonderful to work with both him and the charity. I joined a charity fundraiser for the Palestine Children Relief Fund with a lot of other simmers, and I actually played Fortnite with a group of them, which was super fun. I think that was my first time doing a game like that with other creators on stream, and I had a great time. I set up my own fundraising team called the Fundraising Friends, and in our first year for November, we managed to raise over $20,000 for charity, which was amazing and absolutely bonkers. And I'm still recovering from that because it only happened last weekend at the time of me recording this, because it's just the beginning of December as I'm recording this video. And yeah, that was a really cool thing. I had been wanting to do that for a whole year, set up a team and get together with people to raise money. And the fact that we got to do that was pretty cool. I actually became the founder of the Co-working and Coding Club for Twitch, which is an official Twitch club for those categories on the platform. And I'm going to speak on a Discord panel in 2 weeks, 1 week, next week somewhere. I think my calendar is a bit of a mess, so I need to sort that out. But we're going to do a Discord panel with my fellow founders, also being co-working creators, and we're going to talk about the category and how things have been, and how we got into the category in the first place. So that's going to be very interesting. And I was supposed to do something with a friend of mine, but unfortunately that got moved to next year. But that does mean that I will be continuing my collaborations with other creators in the next year, which I think just solidifies that this goal was really good for myself to set, because I enjoy doing this a lot. Then getting 2 long-term paid brand partnerships absolutely worked out. Actually, way more than 2 happened. I got extended for a current partnership with Fractal, which I have been super happy with. I love working with them. I joined the affiliate network for a Sims family tree service. I got into the Elgato ambassador network. I joined as a Beacon ambassador. I joined the EA creator network, and I had like separate sponsorships which all had or have an opportunity for renewal long term, which means that it isn't necessarily a contractual thing where I'll be working with them for like set amount of months, but it still means that there is a possibility for me to work with them again in the near future. These are not necessarily all paid, but they all come with like upsides that are good for me and the growth that I want to have as a creator and as a business. So these were all very strategic choices, and I'm also really happy that all of them kind of came through this year. It felt like a bit of a surrealistic year in that sense, so that was pretty cool. I feel like something that really helped with this is a goal that I didn't really want to put on the list when I made my original video, but that was getting a management, because at the beginning of the year, I already noticed that there was a big influx of emails of brands that wanted to work with me, which is obviously a huge privilege, and I'm very, very happy that that's the position that I get to be in. But I also noticed that it was impossible for me as a single person just to take everything on by myself. So I think that's one of those little changes, or it actually wasn't a little change, but you know, like that was one of those changes that really definitely contributed to the fact that when I started to focus more on my health, I could continue to do things with my content and grow as a creator, because I had a whole management helping me out, which made a huge difference. So shout out to my management as well. Thank you for just, you know, helping with everything. It helps a lot. I couldn't have done everything that I've been doing in the past 6 months without you guys. Then raise more than 10K for charity. Absolutely smashed it. In total, I raised more than 16,000 for charity this year. So we're getting close to doubling that goal, which blows my mind. Reaching 10K subscribers on the Rosannatxt YouTube is almost funny. When I set this goal, I was so sure that was unattainable. I was so sure that I wouldn't be able to reach 10K subscribers on this channel, because things weren't going bad at all, but it was just like slow and steady. And the fact that I didn't just reach it, but more than doubled it, because at this point we're nearing 23,000, is absolutely bonkers to me. And I am so thankful and so happy, because that's what I've been, you know, I've been wanting to make this my job for a really long time. And I feel like with what happened last year, that might actually finally be a feasible thing. Then reaching 10K followers on Twitch was also a goal that felt very unattainable. Again, also those goals are things that you can't really have an influence on yourself. You're very dependent on other people deciding to click that follow button. So they're more like, you know, milestones for myself rather than, you know, actual goals. But we smashed it, and we're currently at 13,000. So also, again, maybe next year I should dare to be a bit more ambitious with my goal setting. And reaching YouTube partner on this channel, actually reached that in the beginning of the year already. So thank you to everyone who watches these videos and hangs out with me on this channel. I appreciate that a ton. I could not have done that without you. So I feel like this is starting to turn into a thank you speech, but I'm just really grateful for this part of my life. I enjoy it a lot. And the fact that I got to reach so many goals in the past year, and the 2 that I didn't reach was 1, out of my control, but I did, you know, put myself out there, and 2, the second one was like a very conscious decision of me not wanting to do it. So I feel like on this front, it was definitely a very, very successful year. And then next up is professionalize my business. And I feel like I've definitely done some things on this, but there's also some things that I really, really still need to do. So I did find a second editor, and absolutely loved working with her. I will probably look into more editing capacity in the new year, because again, if I'm going to do this more as my work, I'm going to also have to ramp up my video delivery. Create processes and workflows for repeating work, I would say is reached, but also still continues to bring up new challenges. So this is almost a goal or a milestone that I don't think is ever going to be fully reached, because every single time you make a step in growing as a creator, you will also encounter new challenges that you're going to have to tackle. And that means that new things come up that you need to design a process for. But as long as I'm keeping that in mind as a conscious thing of I need to create systems for everything I do, I think I will be able to do this quite sustainably, which is in the end the goal of creating the processes and workflows. Working out a formal structure with focus on income streams is something that I really need to look into. It is kind of linked to the last goal, which is getting help from an accountant, which are both things that I haven't really done. That is partially because these goals feel extremely overwhelming to me. I do not really know where to start. I think in general, being a freelancer and having to run your own financial side of the business is rough. But then also finding an accountant that understands having income from so many different places, also having income from both the US and Ireland and, don't get me started on things like Notion templates, which are selling digital goods. And then there's so many laws and regulations that are also not completely crystal clear or just non-existent when it comes to income from having an online job like this, that I need to find someone who understands that space and market, and I simply do not know where to start looking. So if you're watching this video and you're in the Netherlands and you know a good accountant, or you are a good accountant that is experienced with finances of creators, please hit me up, because I do not know where to start with this. But I need to get started with this because from next year on, I'm passing a certain threshold here in the Netherlands, which means that I will have to start paying business taxes, and I need to make sure that everything's formally correct with, what I'm doing financially. And I'm going to need to have help with that. There's no way that I can do that by myself, which also kind of means that I have to formally structure my business in a way that I have to decide whether I'm going to keep everything in one big business or if I'm going to separate certain things into smaller businesses. So that's definitely a workload that I've been putting off. And it is very clearly showing in this dashboard that I haven't even started them. They're not even on in progress or anything. I've just completely ignored these for the whole year. And that's because I struggle with it, and that's okay. But now that I know that, I need to tackle it head on and actually resolve that problem. I would say for professionalizing and streamlining my branding, I, at the beginning of the year, had very different things in mind. I was going to hire someone to do my entire branding, and I was going to go and get professional headshots taken. Then I ended up actually, reaching out to some people asking for prices, and it turned out that that was way more expensive than that I could at that point afford. So I had to let that idea go. But then I also figured out that, for instance, my professional headshots, I did end up getting taken, but just at TwitchCon and for free. So there were also alternatives to what I had in my head. And I think right now I'm at a place where I feel comfortable with the state of my branding and everything that I'm doing. So I would say it's reached, but just not in the way that I expected it to reach it at the beginning of the year. Then consistently create content that makes me happy is definitely something that I have reached. I would say that letting go of existing progress hasn't always been the most clear or specific, but I do think that I've been holding on less to, well, do I have to make in order to hit high numbers, and more focused on what do I want to make in the moment. And of course, I'll still think of is it something that people would watch? But I've been less allowing that to take the lead in my decisions. Again, collaboration with other creators definitely hit that, and continuously improve and deliver quality content. I have learned so much about editing in the past few months. I have invested into my setup, both this one that you're seeing now and my setup that I can take on the go for when I do vlogging and stuff. I've been experimenting with new content styles like vlogging. So I would say that this is definitely something that I have worked on, and I've also challenged myself. I've done my very first IRL stream. So I feel like I've been getting more and more comfortable with also doing things outside of my comfort zone and seeing whether I like them in content creation, and kind of just experimenting instead of being I cannot do that experiment because what if my current viewers won't like it? Which I think is a really good and healthy place to be in for my content, and I would like to continue doing that next year. And then next and last in my content creation category is improve financial viability of my content creation job. That is something that I have absolutely done. And I'm just going to briefly summarize this goal because I don't personally think it has a lot of added value to like deep dive into everything, because I am going to do a separate video on my income of 2024. I need to wait for all my invoices and everything to be paid before I have like a full overview. But already right now, it looks like I have more than doubled my income as a business compared to last year, which is way more than I ever anticipated that I would reach in 1 year. And there's a couple of very conscious decisions and very conscious choices that came with that. And I would love to talk about those. I am all for financial transparency. So if you're interested in seeing that video, feel free to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't actually miss when I release it. That will probably be somewhere in February 2025, simply because until then, I'm not sure of my like financial situation for this year, because I'm still waiting on certain things to come in from the last month of the year. But from what it looks like now, I have at least already doubled that income. The biggest question is, how does that weigh up to the costs that I've made, and where do we stand going into the next year? But I would say 100% at the beginning of this year, I said to myself, if I'm not allowing myself to say that I would want to be a full-time creator, I'm never going to get there. Like, I need to start saying that I want it, because otherwise I will never actually put the action into my day-to-day life to get there. So I started saying that at the beginning of this year. And at that point, there was not even a little thought in my brain that I would be anywhere near ready to start doing that. Like, if you've seen the video, I will make sure to link it up in the cards and link it in the description box down below. But last year I made $12,000 or 12,000 euros from my content creation business. That's a whole year worth of work, many hours. And I'm not saying 12,000 is not a lot of money, because it absolutely is, but it's not enough to sustain myself as both a business and a person, you know, who has to pay rent and stuff like that. But then this year, I would say, like, at the end of this year, I'm not only at a point where I've been saying the entire year, I want to be a full-time content creator. I feel like everything that I've done has contributed to getting closer to that point. And I'm at a point where I'm like, I'm not ready yet, but I feel like it is close. Like, it is within reach. It is a realistic goal or a realistic thing to want based on my current financial status. So this goal absolutely, definitely reached it, definitely smashed it. And I'm just hoping that I get to continue on this path where I'm right now, so that hopefully somewhere next year I can actually make that decision. But I've decided for myself, because of all the other things that are going on in my life, I'm not going to rush that decision. It's also okay if it takes a couple of months more. I started halfway through the year saying I want to reach that point by the end of the year. I want to be a full-time creator by the end of 2024. I have let go of that idea now, because I feel like it is okay if it takes maybe like 4 months more, 5 months more, as long as I'm happy and okay and I'm like still creating as much as I want. But I don't want to rush into that decision simply because I put like some arbitrary date on it of like, it has to happen by the end of this year. No, it's fine if it happens somewhere next year. I just want it to happen at one point, not too far away in the future. I feel like that goal is a nice segue into the next one, which is my financial goals. And my financial goal was just one, create more financial stability. And I'm not going to say that I absolutely failed at reaching this goal, but I think other things took precedent over me saving a lot of money, which was the primary part of this goal. So manage my personal spendings and get a better understanding of my buying patterns. I absolutely did. I managed to actually track every expense that I did. So for the coming year, I have a very clear understanding of how much I spent on certain things and whether I would like to cut that for next year or whether that is actually completely fine and I would like to keep that the same. This is also going to help me hugely with setting my budget for next year and actually setting attainable goals for my finances. So I think in that sense, creating more financial stability has been reached because I can now set more reachable goals, and I also understand better what I need to be financially stable. However, I didn't do a no spend month this year because every month I had an excuse or a reason why that month would be absolutely impossible to spend no money. And obviously I would be paying rent and getting groceries and stuff, but you know, like the not going shopping, not buying coffee for myself. And every month there was a new reason why that month was not the month. And I think that is something that I have come to realize I want to work on because I do not need to do that every month. Of course, if there is certain things that I need to replace, like if your shoes break and you need to buy new ones, yes, you should be able to buy them. But I want to approach coming year very differently in terms of how I approach my quote unquote impulsive shopping behavior. Not because I'm a big impulsive shopper. I don't spend that much money on impulsive shopping. Like, of course, I will sometimes buy something nice for myself, but I feel like in general, I need to review what I'm spending my money on and whether those things are things I want to spend my money on. And this will be a goal that I think is going to return for next year, or a milestone. Having 1.12K in long-term savings is actually something we did reach, but then we also decided to already invest part of that money into our house because we have decided that we want to remodel parts of our home, and we're currently working on that. So it is no longer there. It's not like that amount is there, but we did manage to actually save enough money and put some extra money aside from our shared account. However, I did absolutely not reach the 7.5K in my personal savings, which the main reason for that is it was a completely unattainable goal at the beginning of the year. I had no clue about my budget. I knew vaguely how much I could save, and I just put like a nice number on it. And then I realized, you know what? Halfway through the year, I was like, this is never going to happen. But again, now that I better understand my entire financial pattern, I can make way better predictions and set way more realistic goals for my savings for next year. So hopefully this category is going to improve with my 2025 video. Then we go into the experience one, which is a big category. So I'm going to not like go into detail on every single one of these because some of them are also just a yes or a no. I did, in fact, read 5 books. I have figured out that I am definitely more of like a wave reader. So I read like 3 books in the first quarter of the year and then didn't read for a whole quarter and then read like another 6. So I think in the end, I have read like 10 or 11 books. So that is 5 more than I planned. So I think for next year, I would like to also push myself a little bit to see if I can make reading more of a routine thing and like read 15 minutes every day. It doesn't have to be much, but I like reading enough, and for some reason I always fall out of it, and then it takes me a lot of energy to get back into it. So I want to see if I can build a little reading routine for myself. Then improving to skills, I will quickly open simply because I had a couple of examples there. I got better at video editing. Absolutely. I continue to push myself to see if I could do creative things that I hadn't done before. I definitely got better at crocheting. When I was evaluating my own goals, I saw this goal and I was like, no, I didn't actually. And then I was like, Ro, at the beginning of the year, you didn't know how to crochet, and now you can crochet and you actually understand patterns and stuff. So yes, I am better at crocheting. I still am not where I want to be. I'm still not really good at crocheting, but I got better compared to the beginning of the year. Definitely got better at using Notion. That is also, again, a continuously evolving goal because Notion always releases new things. Notion always gets new features. So it's like I don't think this will ever stop. I will continuously like to get better at Notion. I was planning on learning how to use formulas this year. That is something that I've absolutely left, partially because I tried it and I don't understand it. I find it too hard. And partially because I didn't have the time for it. So maybe that will get back on there next year. I'm not sure yet. Get better at visualizing for presenting. Definitely worked on it. I would say that this is something that just in general in the past year, I think I've gotten better at design. I've also worked a lot on my thumbnails and, you know, seeing if I can improve them, make them stand out more, make them better. So I think definitely this is something that I have reached. I just think there's still a lot more to learn. And I would love to learn more coming year about this. And then getting better at using Excel. I just realized that I didn't really care about this goal. I set it for myself from some sort of mandatory feeling of needing to do this for my work. I realized it's not my cup of tea. I simply do not enjoy it. I felt like anything that I wanted to learn about Excel, I could already do in Notion. So it didn't feel like added value to me personally. So I just closed it. I think 2 months into the year, I accepted that this wasn't going to happen and I just closed it. And then that brings us to the next one, which is learning to brand new skills. And I would say that this is also one that I haven't really put the time and effort in, but that's mainly because of my health and just not having the mental capacity to learn new things. I would say that there is something that I learned that isn't on this list, and that is that I actually learned how to use my muscles throughout my entire body in the correct way, and that I did learn that I do in fact have stomach muscles, and that I also now know how to use them, which I think for someone who's been struggling with, you know, moving around and physical pain and all those things for my entire life, that is a pretty huge milestone to learn two new things. I think that should count. I would still love to learn how to use ChatGPT better, but that's just something that I haven't had the time to look into, so that will probably just move with me to next year. Same for the learning how to type with 10 fingers. I really wanted to do that, but didn't really get to it. I am going to be building my very first mechanical keyboard myself very soon. I do have mechanical keyboards, but like do my own first build. So I think that will be a really good incentive to improve my typing. And learning how to mind map effectively was another one, kind of like the Excel one, where I realized, why do I want to learn this? It comes from a place of obligation or feeling like I should be doing something instead of me actually wanting to do it. So I decided to just scrap that goal for myself. Then going to at least 10 concerts or festivals or events. I wouldn't necessarily say that I went to 10, but definitely reached all the ones that I set for myself. So I definitely went to see one of my favorite artists in concert. I didn't write all of them down, but I saw so many good artists this year. I went to so many concerts. I went to a festival. So I don't even, like, right now, I cannot really reproduce any of these. But, well, I mean, let's do a quick check. So actually, this tab does come in useful. I saw Depeche Mode, 100% favorite of mine. I saw ELSWHERE, which is also a big favorite of mine. I went to Kim Wilde with my mom. I wouldn't necessarily call this a favorite, but I think it is great. Aurora is actually next year, so I think my filtering needs to get adjusted here, but we'll see Aurora next year. Very exciting. I went to Riverdance with my dad, which is also something that's definitely up on my favorite list. So I would say, yes, absolutely 100% smashed it. Go to a festival with Steph, which is my best friend. We were supposed to go to Werchter, but unfortunately she twisted her ankle, so she couldn't go. So I did end up going. We were supposed to go together and we didn't. So we are going to go together next year because we have to make up for that. But we will be seeing more concerts together, and we will make up for it. And also the plan was there, just unfortunately weren't able to actually execute it. I did go to TwitchCon in the US, and I also went to TwitchCon in EU. It was super fun, loved both, and will again do it next year because I am just a sucker for these events and I have such a great time doing that. And see at least one brand new artist live, because I had actually already seen Depeche Mode, I had seen ELSWHERE, I had seen Kim Wilde. Aurora is only next year, but at Rock Werchter, I saw a bunch of artists that I'd never seen before that I actually thoroughly enjoyed. I think Parcels and Jungle definitely being one of my faves. And when I'm going to Vampire Weekend, that will be in 2 weeks, is also I've never seen them perform live before. So 100% tick that off as well. I would say even tripled it. And then last but not least, travel to 5 destinations. I also think that I reached, but let's do a quick check. If I actually did, we did go to Aruba. I did go to London. I did go to San Diego. I also traveled to Brussels to see a friend. And I think maybe potentially that is it, so that it makes 4. So I would say that I haven't really reached the 5, but I would also like to say that I have actually, done 2 pretty big trips. So maybe we can count those as 2 extra, because I did travel to another continent twice. I traveled both to the States and to Aruba, also like less than a month apart. So I think in that sense, that also explains why I haven't traveled a lot more, because in the beginning of the year, I was also very focused on my health, so I couldn't really leave for 12 weeks. So I mean, if you count Rock Werchter, which is technically also in Belgium, it's a festival, I would say that I have traveled to 5 destinations, but also I didn't want to get too hung up on the 5. The most important thing is that I traveled this year. I saw places, I went places. I went to San Diego for the first time. I absolutely love that city. Very excited to go back next year. And I revisited Aruba with my best friend, her boyfriend, and my partner. If you are interested, I do actually have a vlog of both my travel to San Diego and Aruba on this channel. So if you're interested to see what we did, feel free to go check them out. One is basically an event vlog of TwitchCon, and the other one is actually a travel vlog, which I personally think to this date is my best edited video ever. So feel free to go check it out. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But this is definitely one that I think we reached. And unfortunately, the only thing we didn't do is going to Disneyland. The main reason for that was my health and not being able to schedule it. My partner also switched jobs, so that created like a whole planning ordeal of we couldn't make it, but we definitely still want to do that sometime. And that covers the experience category. And then we're finally getting to the wellness category, which is the category that I think has taken over most of my 2024. And I'm going to start with the first two because I think they're quite generic. And I also don't think I set very specific milestones for it. But being present and in the moment and embracing the hermit life are definitely two things that I've gotten better at. I think being present and in the moment, I've almost gotten so good at that it's created a whole new set of challenges for me, because I learned during actually working on my third goal, getting treatment this year, that I just completely shut off big parts of myself. So like, you know, how I experience my physical state, and I just shut it off so that I don't have to think about it, so I can actually like kind of function as a person with pretty rough ADHD. And I realized that if I have to be present and in the moment and actively experience everything going on around me, my ADHD is way more of a problem than I ever thought it was. So I would say for my next year, and I have already taken some action on it, but this will be something that will probably be executed next year, is I am getting help again for my ADHD, and I would like to actually try out some medication. So I have been thinking, so let me know in the comments down below, to kind of maybe talk a bit more about ADHD related things on this channel, as well as I will very actively be getting a new diagnosis, because my old diagnosis unfortunately expired. Didn't know that that was a thing, but it is so old that they cannot prescribe me medication here, so I have to get re-diagnosed. In that process, we're also going to take a look at other things, see if there's other things that they can diagnose me with to make sure that it's just ADHD, or if it's also multiple things that I can then get help for. But I feel like that being present in the moment almost kind of like backfired on me and made me realize that I have other things I need to work on. So I'm not sure if it's a backfire thing, but it was really rough for a good amount of months this year where I was really struggling with myself and my own brain. That kind of caused me to forcefully embrace the hermit life, because I couldn't go out as much, also because of my treatment for fibro and EDS. I've been really homebound. I feel like my health seems fine when I'm creating content and doing stuff, but that's because I get to do all of that from like this specific chair in this specific workspace that's like fully adjusted to work for me and my body, and I still experience pain. But as soon as I go out in the world and I have to carry a heavy bag, or I have to like, I don't know, be in the office the whole day where it's maybe colder than I can handle, and then all my joints start to hurt, and it kind of became this thing where I started to almost be more of a hermit than I wanted to be at the beginning of the year. So I think next year will definitely be about finding a balance in how do I live a life, but also give myself enough time to rest and heal, and where are like my boundaries in that. So that's going to be interesting next year. I did actually get treatment for my fibro and my ADS, and it's been immensely helpful, but unfortunately also, like I've already mentioned, created a whole set of new challenges. There's also a couple of things that remain unanswered when it comes to my health, like certain issues that do not necessarily fit the profile of fibro and EDS, and that I still need to continue looking into. So for 2025, I feel like my health will again be on the agenda, but maybe less of a novelty and more of a, now my health actually has a more default spot into my life of being part of who I am and what I do and how I take care of myself, rather than, oh, this year I have to put it as an active goal because otherwise I'll just ignore it forever. So I think that changed. That was a pretty fundamental change in my personality for this year, which I think is a good one, but definitely had a lot of impact on any of the other things that I thought I would do at the beginning of this year. And then I think we're going to move on to the next one. Otherwise, this video is going to be long and rambly. And those are my relationship goals. And that is, I think, focusing on friendship that allow me to grow. Absolutely. That is not easy, though. It's been a pretty rough process of also realizing that maybe certain friends fit you in a certain phase of your life and they no longer fit you, or you just outgrow friendships. And that is something that I think a lot of adults experience, but not many people talk about because it's not necessarily the most fun topic, or, it's not a pretty part of growing up, is realizing that you also have to let go of people. But at the same time, that also made me realize the friendship that I do have that like bring me so much value and so much happiness that I want to actively cherish those more and like actively make sure that I do not lose those too. So I feel like it's definitely given me more focus and more answers on what I need to do. But now next year, I just need to make sure that I continue doing that. Making time for my family is definitely something that I need to do or want to do more next year. I say need to do because I feel like I really wanted to do it and I didn't. So I think next year I need to do it. The main contributing factor to this is because I've been living such a hermit lifestyle and been protecting my health so much and been putting so much effort and energy into that I just didn't have the time. But I think next year I would like to find a better balance of how I can make more time for my family and also my friends, and like kind of make sure that the energy that I do have doesn't always go to work, because that sometimes happens right now. I think the only thing that specifically in the past 6 months I have found a better balance in compared to last year is having time for a relationship. I know here it says have a relationship. There have been a lot of really positive changes in my personal life compared to last year and where we stood in our relationship. And I think a lot of those things are also relatively private, so I'm not going to just share in a video like this, but I think it's definitely something that has also taken quite some energy and headspace from my side in the past year to get to the point where we are now, which I think is in a way better place than we were last year. So I'm glad this was one of my goals, and I'm glad that I've actively taken action on realizing it. I do think we still have a lot to learn, not necessarily a lot to do, as in like we need to fix this or otherwise it's a problem, but more like I now spot so many opportunities for us to even get closer and to, stand more as one front rather than two individuals who happen to be in a relationship, which I think is also completely natural, learning that as you are going and as you are growing both. And we've been together for 7 years, so it's been a long while. So we still are like also evolving as humans, and it makes sense that we are also growing as people, and that potentially means that we have to relearn certain things from each other. So it is a continuous process that I want to make sure to just not, leave out next year for my goal. So I'll probably have something, but I think it's going to be less of a prevalent goal of this is really, like when I started this year, for me personally, this was one of my main goals. I'm not sure if I really worded it that way, but it felt like this was one of my main goals. And I think I'm glad that I put that much emphasis on it. But I think next year, maybe it can be a different type of emphasis, maybe doing more fun things rather than, okay, we just need to have time for each other. And I think that actually concludes my goals review. I would like to briefly talk about what I would like to change in my Notion template for next year. I think something that I have definitely realized is that I need to have my goals dashboard. I initially, in my Notion tour of 2024, got rid of my goals dashboard. I made it, but then I tried to integrate it into all my other dashboards, but I realized that for reviewing things, that didn't work. So we're going to change that next year. I also don't think I will have all of these things linked to it. I just in general want to simplify my Notion a bit more. I still want it to be smart as it is right now. But I think what I did, I went from like 0 to 150 in my 2024 Notion setup. And I kind of want to maybe bring it down to 95 again. Like have a bit more balance in. It is okay to want to register everything, but let's not overcomplicate it. And let's not try to register so much that you never do it. So I think that's something that I definitely want to change. I also want to see, but I need to look into this a little bit more for myself still, to see if I can maybe set quarterly goals or like 6 months goals, because I feel like certain things on this dashboard I reached within the first 2 months, and then other things I just kept postponing for the entire year. Whereas I think if I make more attainable, smaller goals in a quarter, it will also become easier to maybe think of something I want to do that year, but just not yet, and kind of put it on a back burner instead of constantly, specifically in the beginning of the year, feeling like I have this whole list of goals and I have to work on them all at the same time. So that might be something that I would like to implement into my system. And then I think just in general for goal setting, I would like to see if I can make a lot of my goals more specific. I wouldn't necessarily say measurable, but at least have a clearer understanding of what do I consider as the end point to this goal. Because I had a lot of goals that said like improve something or work on this, or it was like almost tied to an action. But then I was like, okay, but I've done the action. Have I now reached my goal? Does it feel like I'm done? And then I was like, no, because it feels like a continuous process, and like kind of make my goals a bit more smart. And the silly thing is, I've been hearing this for years. I've been hearing like, make your goals smart, make your goals specific, you know, like all of those things for so long. And somehow it still didn't click why that was important until now, or it didn't click how I was supposed to do that. So that's something that I definitely also want to change. And I think if I can set more specific goals that aren't necessarily for a whole year, or maybe some of them can be, but like also more specific goals for a shorter period of time, I think next year I can only increase this exponential growth of me being able to reach my goals and actually being way more intentional with my life than I was 3, 4, 5 years ago. Because if you look at this now, you might not say it, but 4 years ago, I didn't have any goals. I said when someone asked, oh, what are your goals for the new year? I was like, goals? Why would I have goals? I don't do goals. Goals are useless. I'll just see how my life goes. And I think I've really pivoted from that to realizing that I can do so much more if I'm intentional with my time. And I think that's something that I want to leverage next year, because I think that might be the key to eventually being able to do all the things that I want to do in the coming years, or maybe in my entire lifetime, as in something that fits with my ambitions. Is I'm gonna have to spend my time intentionally, otherwise I will not get there, or I will get there in a really long time. And I don't want to wait that long, because I have too many cool things I want to do in this life. So I think that kind of concludes my philosophy on goals. And I hope that you like this bit more rambly video, kind of a catch up, kind of a look into the future. Let me know in the comments down below how you did on your goals for 2024, whether you feel like you've reached them, if there's anything that you would like to do different, if there's anything that you struggled with maybe this year. I would love to hear all of your experiences. Also, if this is your first time ever seeing a video from me, feel free to go check out my channel. And if you like what you see, feel free to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. I do a lot of things on Notion, but also just general life productivity and a little bit of traveling and vlogging and just lifestyle content. So feel free to go check it out. And if you like this specific video, feel free to toss it a cheeky like. And with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.